But I'd love to start by asking you guys a really important question. Have you ever betrayed a friend? So for myself, I've got a bit of an opening story. When I was in grade 6, I was best mates with Chris Woodward. So you guys will know Chris Woodward is a leader here at this youth ministry. He's not actually here tonight, but you know him. He's got the really impressive beard, right? And he'll school anyone in basketball. But me and him were best mates. So we were tight as in grade 6. And as most grade 6 boys do, they start crushing on girls around this kind of age. So we're at lunch one day and Chris says to me, hey, Daniel, we're such good mates, man, and I want to let you in on this little secret. I'm crushing really hard on this girl called Maddie, right? Yeah, so it's a bit cute. And I say, yeah, man, that's awesome. Look, I got your back. He's like, hey, just please don't tell anyone. I haven't told anyone. You're the first person I've told. Can you keep that a secret for me? And I'm like, absolutely no worries. You know, we're sweet. Next period comes by. So straight after lunch, we're in different classrooms. And some of the guys I'm sitting with have found out that Chris told me who he liked. And they start trying to extort it out of me. And at the start, I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to give it up. I'm such a good friend. Anyway, so we had these tidy trays. I don't know if you guys ever had them in primary school, like below the desk, yeah. And so my mates start pulling out whatever they can find in their tidy trays. And the first guy pulls out $1. And you're like, no way, Daniel, you didn't give it up for $1. And you're right, I didn't, so be proud of me. And so there's $1 on the table for me to cough up who he liked. And the next thing that they offer me, should be on the screen, is some 5 gum. Has anyone ever had 5 gum? Yeah, so definitely the best chewing gum. I haven't really seen it around the supermarkets lately, so I don't know if it's out of business or anything, but the best chewing gum you can have, and it was the coolest chewing gum you could have in grade 6. And so there's $1 and a piece of chewing gum. I might add the chewing gum was Zing flavour. I hadn't tasted this flavour yet. And that really did it for me. I gave up who Chris liked to these guys for $1 and a piece of gum. So if you can beat that, if you can betray a friend for anything less, that's really, really sad because I'm really embarrassed with myself. But I hope that we'll be able to start a bit higher up in our friendship scale than that tonight, and we might be able to look into what it's like to be a good friend. So will you join me in prayer as we open? God, I pray and thank you for your forgiveness for me for that day where I betrayed Chris as a friend. I pray that you might speak into our lives and that you might show us what it's like to be a good friend. You might show us what it's like to be a friend that reflects the characteristics of Jesus. And as we step through tonight, I pray that we'll be convicted of something and that we might be bold and courageous and make a change in our lives. Amen. So I wonder in your life what your friends look like. They might be sitting next to you right now, or they might not be. They might be somewhere else. You might have heaps and heaps and heaps of friends, but maybe they're not actually that close. Maybe you're not that good of friends with them. Or maybe you've only got a select few. You got 3 or 4, but you're really tight. You get along so well. You hang out every weekend with them. I think that whichever boat you're in, we can agree that God intended for us to be in friendship, right? There's no point of him creating 7 billion people if he wasn't expecting us to talk to each other. So we see that in creation starts and God creates the sea, the land. He creates everything in being and he says it is all good. And the first part of the whole Bible where something's mentioned to be not good is when man is alone. So in Genesis 2 verse 18 it says, it is not good for man to be alone. So that's Adam, right? And so what does God do? Well, he creates Eve. So now there's 2 people and they're friends, right? So that's like us. From that point onwards, we've always been in friendship with other people. So I think that as we think about our lives and as our friendships, maybe it's actually a bit more important than we first thought. Maybe instead of just walking around second nature at school, hanging out with the same friends, hanging out with the same people on the weekends, just hanging out with who we get along with really well, maybe it's actually more important. Maybe we should be looking a bit deeper into what kind of friend we are and what kind of friends are we're letting into our lives. You see, I think that the most pivotal part of friendship is that we become like our friends. So Solomon, who wrote the book of Proverbs, which is in the Old Testament, so this is before Jesus came, he gives some really clear wisdom into friendship. And he wrote these collection of, it's sort of an inspiration, lots of wise sayings. And he wrote it to young people like you. People say that he probably wrote it to his son, but it's still argued a bit. So let's just take it as he wrote it to all of us. And the Bible's written to everyone, so we should look into it. And the first reason that he gives for us to need to have friends or to be keen on friendship is that in Proverbs 27 verse 17 it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So what does this actually mean? I guess it's saying that for an example, if you were going to run a marathon, right? If you're training to run a marathon, you're not going to pick your training buddy to be someone who walked in the school cross country. You're going to rather maybe run with someone like Jason, he's a pretty fit guy, or the Beal brothers, they're pretty fit. You're going to want to get them alongside you, and you're going to get really competitive, and you're going to run a much, much better time. So as we walk through today what it looks like to be a good friend, I hope that we might realize maybe one of two things. We might maybe see that the friends we have around us aren't actually the kind of friends that God wants us to have. They're not the kind of friends that are going to grow us and help us to walk more like Jesus. Or maybe we might realize in our own life that our friendship and the friendship we're offering people isn't mirroring that of the relationship that Christ gives us. So I'm going to go through 5 points, and they're really good points. So I want you to write them down. So pull out your phones right now. If you're going old school with a notebook, that's awesome. But we've got 5 points, and each of them has a key word which starts with a key letter, and at the very end, it's going to spell a word, all right? So you've got to pay attention. You've got to make sure you get all 5 letters. So the first one is a good friend encourages. A good friend encourages, and they specifically encourage godly behavior. You see in Proverbs 13, verse 20, it says, "Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and you will get into trouble." So this is just a more complicated way of saying, like I said before, you're going to become like the people that you hang out with, right? You're going to adopt their mannerisms, their behaviors, their beliefs, their traits. Have you ever noticed that you're really similar to your parents or your family? It's because you grew up with them. So this year for myself, I've been living with 4 good mates. One of them's actually in the room, Matty Wood, so quick shout out to him. And 3 of them, including Matt, they love staying up really, really late. So that's a bit of their lifestyle, and I like to think of myself as someone that goes to bed at a reasonable hour. But ever since living with these 3 guys, as the years progressed, I've slowly pushed my bedtime back and then waking up a little bit later, and just a slight behavior change. And that's not because of what I want to do, but it's because of what I've been living with my housemates. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just different to maybe the way I was before I moved into the house. So quick hot tip, lock in next week. If you're up about 2 or 3 a.m., hit Matt and myself up, because that'll probably be the middle of our afternoon. That's our routine at the moment. But a quick point on that is that Proverbs isn't saying, hey, let's not associate with people who aren't similar to us, or let's not associate with sinners or non-Christians or people of different religion or different ages. It's actually saying walk with the wise in our inner circle. So our 3 or 4 closest friends who are really influential on our life, make sure that they are wise. You see, a good friend encourages godly behavior, and a good friend reflects the character of Jesus. So that's number 1, they encourage. Number 2, a good friend keeps confidences. So what do I mean by that? They keep secrets, right? They do what I failed to do for Chris. So in Proverbs 20, verse 19, it says, "A gossip betrays confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much." So this isn't saying, hey, let's avoid the chatterbox, or let's avoid our friend that just yap in our ear. It's actually saying, let's avoid people who are going to give up important bits of information, who they're constantly trying to talk about you in a negative light, or they're constantly trying to talk about someone else in a negative light. A really easy and practical way to know if someone or any of your friends are a gossip is if they're going to talk to you about someone else, the chances are they're going to talk to someone else about you, right? So it's pretty easy. You can gauge that. You could probably think about that right now in your head as to who that is in your life. So Solomon clearly advises us, let's not associate with those people. Let's not make those people in our inner circle. Let's not let them be the biggest influences on our life. And in my life, I'm going to share a bit of a story now. I had a secret, or I had something that happened, which I had a friend who kept it a secret for as long as I wanted him to. And I'm going to tell you the story. The story goes like this. So I was about 14, so like the same age as a lot of you guys. And I was away on a football trip. And on the way back, we're catching a bus home. And it's a long bus ride, like 8 hours. And about halfway through the journey, everyone's obviously needing to pee. Everyone's hungry. We stop at this really isolated petrol station kind of looking place. And I get off the bus and I need to pee so bad, so I go straight to the toilet. And everyone else goes straight away to get food. So I come out to get food and everything's gone, right? there's one thing left. There's like this meat pie in the warmer, and it's the only thing left. And I didn't really think at the time, but stupidly, I ordered the pie, I ate the pie. We're driving back home on the bus, and we get back home. Everything's sweet. To make the story a little bit worse, my parents were out of town, so I stayed with a friend. And it was a school night, so we went to bed at a reasonable hour. Anyway, I wake up, maybe middle of the night, and the pie that I ate was obviously a bit of a bad pie. And it didn't come out my front end, came out the other end. And so I'm waking up to this smell like, and that's disgusting, right? That's what a 14-year-old, that's what kills you. That's social suicide if people were to find that out about you, right? And so my good mate, it was only him and his parents that found out, and he didn't tell anyone for 6 years, all right? That's good. That's really impressive. He did much better than I did. And so 6 years later, at my 21st birthday, he asked for permission to share it, and I told him he could, because I can look back on it and have a bit of a laugh. But for those 6 years, I'm so grateful that he didn't tell anyone. That really would have hurt me a lot. But I wonder what you're like in your friendships. Are you like my friend who can hold on to a secret for as long as someone wants you to? Or are you like me who maybe doesn't have as much self-control and you're going to let it out straight away? Because you want to be around the people that are going to be by your side, they're going to carry you through for as long as you want that secret to be held. No one wants someone who's just going to go gossip all their information away. So a good friend keeps confidences, they keep secrets, and a good friend reflects the characteristics of Jesus. Number 3 is respect space. So the key word is space, starting with an S, so write that down. And in Proverbs 25, verse 17, it says, let your foot rarely enter your neighbor's house, rarely be in your neighbor's house. Too much of you and they will hate you. Wow, that's a bit savage. But basically what this means is that a good friend provides space, right? They don't smother themselves, or they're not always forcing their presence onto their other friend. You see, I had another friend growing up, and we spent so much time together. We used to play sports together, we went to school together, or we drove to school together, we caught the same bus, we went to the same church, our parents worked together, and it ended up like everything that we were doing, it was like, oh, hey man, you're there again. And we were always hanging out. And it got so dry and toxic, and we started to hate each other, and it was really, really bad. And so what Solomon is saying here in this proverb is that find a friend and don't give them enough room to be comfortable. So when we are smothering someone, or when we're forcing ourselves on someone, we're kind of saying that, hey, we don't actually trust that person to make good decisions on their own. We feel like we need to intercede and make those decisions for them. Or we don't trust that person to have their relationship with God. I want to be a part of that, It's a bit weird. So a good friend is more concerned about whether their friend is trusting God rather than trying to trust themselves. So that's number 3. A good friend respects space, and they reflect the characteristics of Jesus. So that's 3. First of all, we got encourage. Second of all, we got keeps confidences or keeps secrets. And the third one is space. They respect space. Number 4 is a good friend is always, always, always honest with us. So Proverbs 27 verse 6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the wounds of an enemy. So it's better to actually be hurt by a good close friend who has your best interest in mind rather than an enemy of yours or someone else who's just going to tell you, yeah, you're perfect at that. They're going to flatter you. They're going to make you feel real great. When in actual fact, you're not that good. You need to change your ways. They're never going to tell you you're wrong. They're never going to tell you need to change. For myself, I had someone in my life who was able to give me honest wisdom. And in year 12, I met our youth pastor who's here today, Jason Mountjoy. Ripper guy. Yeah, give it up for Jace. So good. And as great friends do, we got to hang out a lot. We went for coffee, we went surfing a few times. He definitely showed me up. But in times where we got to sit down and have raw chats, through sincere love and honesty, he was able to tell me, hey, Daniel, look, it's not because it annoys me, but it's because that doesn't line up with the character of Jesus. I think you need to change that. And it would be really loving, and the way he would do it would be great, and it would only work because we were such good friends, but he was honest, right? And in the moment, it would hurt me to be like, hey, man, you don't have to do that. that really hurts. Like, that's actually hitting deep. But as I could reflect on that, I realized that, hey, Jason has my best intentions in mind. He wants me to be the best version of myself. He wants me to be a great Christian, not just an average Christian. He wants people to look at me and think, hey, that's what it's like to walk a life following Jesus. You see, I was able to grow as a person, and that's because a good friend is always honest, and a good friend always reflects the characteristics of Jesus. So number 5 is a good friend, and this I think is the most important almost. A good friend is faithful in adversity. It's a key word, adversity. In chapter 17, verse 17, it says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Now, this is a really important characteristic of a good friend. Someone who's willing to ride through the best times with you when you're killing it at life, maybe you're achieving high, and someone who's willing to ride with you when you're at the lowest of your lows. The enemy in this, I wonder in your life, have you got someone who's rock solid? Are they sitting next to you right now, maybe? Have you got someone who's been with you through your lowest moment in life? If you can think about that right now, if you can reflect on your life, the worst part of your life, who was the one that didn't leave? I wonder if they're there through breakups, through relationship breakups, through loss of family members, or when you're failing, maybe you got cut from a team, maybe you failed, you got suspended at school. I don't know what your worst moments were, but were they there? Seriously, ask yourself that. And you see in the Bible, it says that whilst we were still sinners, in our darkest moment, in our biggest betrayal against God, He still sent Christ down to die for us. Even when humans might fail us, Jesus never will. He's always, always going to ride through adversity with you. You see, even Paul, right? So Paul was a persecutor of Christians. He murdered Christians for a living. Really, really brutal. And Jesus' mercy and faithfulness transformed Paul into one of the most prolific and one of the most influential Christians of the early church. He wrote heaps of books in the New Testament. And this all came from someone who was the furthest you could get from God. And God said, hey, no, look, I'm going to choose that guy. I'm going to ride with that guy. Even more so, Peter, right? Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, Jesus says, hey, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times once I get arrested. You're going to tell everyone that you don't know me. And Peter's like, no, I love you. Like, how could you say that about me? I would never say such a thing. And what happens? Well, Jesus gets arrested, right? And someone says, hey, aren't you hanging out with Jesus? And 3 times he says, no, I don't know that guy. Don't associate me with that guy. But what does Jesus do? Well, Jesus still went to the cross for Peter, right? He never left Peter's side, even when Peter betrayed him as far as he could. I think in my life, I've been pretty privileged. I've had quite a few friends. I've had some friends who've been really rock solid and who've rode through those ups and downs with me. I've had other friends who maybe didn't bring out the best, or they definitely didn't bring out the best in me, and they didn't help me live a life and have a friendship that reflected Jesus. And so through courage and over time, I was able to sort of transition away from those kind of friends. But I really encourage you to think about who are those people in your life that might be steering you away from walking a life that reflects Jesus. See, about halfway through year 12, maybe similar times when I met Jason, I had a bit of an identity crisis, right? I really became lost and thinking that, hey, no one's ever going to understand me. No one actually knows who I am. I didn't even know who I am myself. And I felt really broken inside. I felt like I had no way out. I felt like, even though I had friends, I felt like no one was with me every second. No one was always there when I had nothing else, when I felt nothing else. And this began a few long years of journeying, definitely long years. But working through it, I found out and I decided, and I gave my life to Christ, that Jesus is the one who's never going to leave your side. He's the one who, even when you've told him, stuff off, go away, you swear at him, you're so angry at Jesus, he's still there and he's waiting for you. You see, his friendship is encouraging, it keeps confidences, it's space, it's honest, and it's faithful in adversity. His friendship, and the friendship that I think we should strive for, is something I like to call Kesha, right? So I'm not talking about Kesha as in the hip-hop artist who sings, tick-tock on the clock, but the party don't stop. No. Yeah, no, that's not the one I'm talking about. You got it all messed up. Kesha is the kind of friend that Jesus is to us. And it's the kind of friend that he calls us to be to others. It's the kind of friend that he calls us to look for in other people. I want you to think and imagine if you were able to strive to be this kind of Kesha friend who had all these characteristics that Jesus had when he was on earth. Would that transform your life? How would your small groups look if you had that kind of strong relationship with one another? What would your close friendships look like if that was the kind of friend you were to someone and that was the kind of friend they were to you? I wonder, even maybe at school, what other people would think of you. What would your peers think when they say, oh, that's that person there. They're the best friend anyone can have. I've heard such great things about the kind of friend they are. They're not going to use this word, but they know you're a Kesha friend. You've got it all down pat. And imagine what kind of conversations could be born out of that when you're able to tell them, hey, actually, I know a better friend. Hey, actually, I'm only this way because I met a better friend than this. And that's Jesus. You see, if we're able to adopt this mentality and this way that we want to live our lives, people are going to see it, right? It's going to transform us. It's going to transform the world around us. I think that God is genuinely concerned with what kind of friend you are. He's really concerned about the friends you choose and the friends you are to other people. Because that, especially while you're growing up and in the world, that's how you interact with people, right? They know you by your friendship. And they're going to see Jesus through that if this is how you want to live. So my hope is that you might better reflect on your own life. Think about the friendships you have in your life. If something needs to change, be courageous, be bold, ask for prayer. It might not happen straight away, but be courageous and stand for what kind of friend you want to be. So would you join me as we close? God, thank you for bringing your son down and showing us what it's like to be the best friend that anyone could have. Thank you for showing us what kind of friend it is that keeps confidences, that's encouraging, that's honest, that gives space, and that's faithful through adversity. I pray that as we walk into our lives the following few weeks and over the summer, that we might be able to reach out to people and be seriously good Kesha friends. I pray that people will see your name written across the sky when we're hanging out with them. That they'll be able to see your love through the way that we interact with one another. God, I just pray that you bless all our friendships in this room. I pray that 2020 will be a year of better friendships and better decisions and a better character that we can give to other people. So God, I thank you for the opportunity that it is to be a friend and the opportunity is to be loved by our friends. And I pray that you will transform the way that we do this in our life. And everybody said, amen.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope this message encouraged you. If you have any prayer requests, please let us know. Our contact information is in the description down below. Make sure you like this video, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone you think needs to hear it today. We'll see you next time. All right, who's next?